And now, Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us today at Deborah Kobylt Live. I have two incredible guests in their studio today with me, Randy Gardner, whom I watched constantly as a little kid, and every breath when I would watch you skate, Randy, with Thai Babylonia. I think you are amazing. You are a figure skating champ, obviously, two-time Olympian, U.S. national and world pair champion with Thai. Just amazing. And so much more. I mean, you've been in the Ice Capade. You've done so much. Thank you for joining us. And we have writer, director, editor of the film, Go Figure, the Randy Gardner Story, Sharidan Sotelo. Thank you both for being here. As you know, I got a sneak peek of the film, and I couldn't stop watching it. Every time a member of my family came home, I said, you got to watch this. I watched it multiple times. I think it's a phenomenal film about your life, Randy, and so beautifully executed by you. So thank you both. Thank you. Tell me first, Randy, let's start with you. Why the film? I know that sort of this was born from a one-person show that you were doing. Is that correct? About your life?
It was, yeah. Ooh, I just zipped off. Can you see me?
Yeah, you're beautiful. Oh. I got you.
Okay. Mine went to Zoom like a weird screen. Okay. The film came from the one-person show, essentially. And I was doing the play, and I had brought Sharidan in because I wanted to do a new sizzle reel for it. And one thing led to another. And we went from the sizzle to like a little short version of a film, and that just sort of kept developing and developing. And I thought, you know, why don't we just try to do a documentary? Actually, that was Sheridan's idea. And so we just kept going with it, and there you have it. And we made it.
You know, here's what's amazing about this film. It's a lot about your skating and your relationship with Thai Babylonia, but it's a lot about your life. And about your life growing up with your parents who were conservative, right, down in the Long Beach area. There's a big reveal that we'll get to a little later on in the show about your life that I'm telling you to this moment, I go, because I can't believe the way you described what happened to you in your life. It's also about that time that we all remember or seen later in years when you fell during competition because of an injury, and when you were injected with, you're going to have to tell us, you couldn't feel your legs, so you couldn't compete. Just so much, just so much. But I want to ask you, Sharidan, how did you envision this? Because it was beautifully executed, the way you edited in his one-person show with his skating and the interviews. How'd you do that?
Well, like Randy was saying, initially it was just supposed to be a sizzle reel for the film or for the play.
Yeah. Right.
And because I'm was almost a one girl band, I'm not very much a cinematographer. So like, you know, documentaries are very slick nowadays. So it was certain things clicked where there's certain things that are in film, you know, that are film plays that don't translate. And the things that translate in documentary are those little authentic moments. And so when it's got to be so super difficult to do your story, especially Randy's story with all the crazy nuances and heartbreak, but you do it on stage and you're projecting it and you're doing it 8 shows a week kind of thing. It's a whole different kind of feel. And so for documentary, I wanted to kind of ground it. And so there was actually a Todrick Hall behind the curtain. It was behind the scenes of his show and barely showed the show. And I go, that's the way to do it. It's about prep. You know, when you're skating, it's about the training. The actual competition is 4 minutes. That's it. Everything else is the buildup. Everything else is the structure. Yeah. So, when it was one of those things, I told him I would love to just interview him about what he says in the play. Just talking as legacy. And then he gave me the scrapbooks, and that kind of is how it all happened.
So you start the show, Randy, talking a little bit about your life as a little kid, growing up, and it's Long Beach, right? Is that where you grew up?
I grew up in Culver City, Ladera Heights area, but I was born, well, my birth mom was in Long Beach. And I was born at that religious center, which was where I was taken, where my birth mom had me. But I pretty much
we just gave away the reveal for those who didn't know, but we'll talk about that, because the way it's revealed in the film, I'm telling you, I could watch it 10 times and I will still gasp. The way you spoke about it in your one-person show, I thought, oh my God. I even replayed it once because I couldn't imagine going through what you went through. Okay, so you grew up in Culver City with your adoptive parents. So now it's out of the bag. You're with your adoptive parents. Okay. Conservative family, right?
Yes.
You weren't the baseball player, but you had some talent on skates.
It's funny because I tried baseball and didn't go too well. It was not for me.
No football, huh? But it's amazing. An athlete is an athlete. It doesn't matter what you do. You know, you were an athlete.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I was probably would have been a gymnast or a dancer had I been not a figure skater.
Yeah.
And I took to skating. You know, my dad took me when I was a boy. I was 7. And I took to it. And I kept going for group lessons. And that evolved into private lessons. And then, of course, I met Ty when I was very young. And that sort of started that path.
You were really young because in the film, Ty said, "Oh, I had to hold his hand." You know what I mean? In terms of pairs, you know, and when you're a little girl, you're like, you know, but I love that you instantly connected. You guys really had a bond. And to this day, you're brother and sister practically, you know. I love that. Oh gosh, what beautiful skaters. So when did you become Ty and Randy? When did that happen? When you guys realized that there's something here, or someone realized it for you?
Well, I think it was a gradual development. I think when we went to our first Olympics in 1976, that sort of it was a big broadcast. It was in Innsbruck. That's the year Dorothy Hamill won. Oh, and it was a big broadcast. And I think then we became more household names, and the Ty and Randy label started then.
Yeah, incredible. You know what always amazes me about you is your strength, because pair skating is hard. Is it harder to be a pair skater than an individual skater? I'm going to guess yes, but what's your answer?
I don't like to categorize that because I think they're both. Ice dancing's hard. However, in pair skating, you have a partner. There's unison. There is the strength of lifting and the girl being thrown. So it's a little more. There's more layers to it. A little more complex. Of
course it is. Are you kidding? It's like anything. It looks easy, and it's like, you go try it. But I love what you said in the film. You said, you know, your strength, you get her there, but then it's up to your partner to land it. To you know, how did you say it in the film? You said it way better than I'm saying it.
Well, the girl has to finish it off.
Yeah, the girl finishes it off.
We can get them in the air in a lift. We can get them there in a throw, but God darn, that girl has to do it. Now, and we're right under them. We're with them. But we have to launch it. And the launch, like launching a rocket, that's the most important part.
When you were a single skater, though, I think you and your coach made a decision, you know what, pairs would be better for you, because who was the big sensation at the time in the Olympics? Was it Scott Hamilton?
Well, he was there. And we were both competing in singles, sort of parallel at the same time as the pair. But we were national champions, and we were on the international circuit. And in those days, we were doing school figures and the short program and the long program and singles as well. So it's very difficult training wise. And US Figure Skating said, you know, you got to make a decision, because you're there. You've been to an Olympics as a pair team. So we probably went, I think, 2 years doing both singles and pairs, and then the singles phased out, because we really had to focus on the pair team.
Yeah, eventually you have to make a choice. And you skated as well as a kid, didn't you, Sharidan?
I did.
And you're still a skater, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I actually, it'll be 20 years in October that I started competing as an adult.
Okay, I got to ask you this. Did you ever have aspirations or dreams about being in the Olympics? I did when I skated. Sometimes I still think about it. How crazy is that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's what you do. I mean, that's the Olympic glow, you know. I mean, I remember crying watching them. And I mean, that's the beauty of figure skating. I'm skating with my hero right here.
Yeah.
I was just, I was so enthralled with Ty and Randy. They were LA kids. She's part Filipino like me. It was so relatable. I remember watching them at Arctic Blades and just seeing them kind of grow up and stuff like that. And then and for me though, I graduated high school early. I graduated at 15. And I was trying to figure out, because back at that point, and we say it, when you were an amateur, and you couldn't make any money. And you had to turn pro. And so everybody I saw at the rink that were going for the Olympics, they either turned pro or became a coach. And I wanted to do film. And I didn't, I could have, pursued one, but I was like, I really want to do film, and I made that choice.
Randy, you had a very difficult moment, if you can describe it in your own words, where you had an injury and a crushing moment, actually, in front of the world. Why don't you talk about that to us? Because I can barely even talk about it, and it didn't happen to me.
Well, 1980 Olympics, Lake Placid. We won the World Championships in 1979. And so it was going to be big because the Olympics were in the U.S. No American peer team had ever won the Olympics. So we were going in as the leaders because Rodina Zaitsev, who were our top competition, were out the year before. She was having a baby. So we were coming in head on with them for the first time after 2 years. And she had won 2 Olympics already. This was going to be her third, and it ended up becoming her third. But we were training. Everything was okay. We were here in LA training. And about 14 days before we were to leave to get in the plane to go to Lake Placid to shift over to Olympic mode, I pulled a groin. Now, I had groin pulls before, and it was okay. It actually was pretty good when we left to go to Lake Placid. Then we were there a couple days, and it was hurting, but it actually, as I say, it was skatable. But then the night we had done the opening ceremonies, and we had a practice that night, and I pulled it again. And that was 2 days before the short program, which was our, beginning competition of the games. And I just couldn't do it. It was very painful, and I had done a really good job of it. And so the U.S. Olympic team doctors were on me, and I always say it was like a race. I was like a racehorse. Olympic Committee, IOC, U.S. were all saying, get him out there, whatever you have to do. So there's only a few things you can do: physical therapy, certain doping drugs that you can take for pain and for inflammation. They were giving me that. Wasn't working. And then it was the day of the short program, and they said, okay, well, we're going to administer a shot of xylocaine. And they shoot it right in the muscle. So they did that. And that happened in the arena right before the short program.
So it really didn't have any time to go through your body, right? It was right then and there. Boom.
You didn't want it to. You wanted it to isolate. And
you did. Okay.
It isolated, but it was my abductor muscle, and I couldn't control it. I couldn't feel it, so I couldn't control it. So those famous clips of me falling in the warm-up, because I couldn't pull in my legs on the jump. And I could barely put weight on it either. So that was the reason for the withdrawal. I just couldn't get through it.
And I loved in the film, Sharidan, the way you spliced in the commentators when they were saying maybe he should have warmed up more. He may have needed more of a warm up than Ty usually needs more. I love the commentators, right? Listening to what they had to say. Did that had nothing to do with it, right? It had to do with you had an injury, period. Correct?
Oh yeah. It wasn't about warming up, being in shape, that kind of thing. It just happened, and it was, when you're at the Olympics and it's 48 hours before you are to compete, you do one of two things. You push really hard or you pull back. Depends what your training technique is. So we pushed.
Did you love training? Because, go ahead. Did you love training? day in and day out? Did you love it?
That's a really, you know what? That's a really good question. I haven't really been asked that as directly as that. Okay, let me tell you this. I liked training to be good. I knew that it was important. And training, when it was successful, made you successful as an athlete.
You felt so good, right? I mean,
good. And I was, listen, I was okay getting up and doing the hours. I was okay with the physical part. The mental part's a whole separate area. And, you can get tired. There was stress with training.
Yeah.
We were going for the Olympic gold medal.
Yeah.
So and you just have two bodies in our case, two bodies doing that.
Right. Day in, day out, you became these things that just kept working. But it seemed to me, especially
sorry,
so I'm sorry. It seemed to me when I watched the film, and this is something you both were almost happy to, not happy, but enjoyed doing because of that end goal as an athlete. You were there to compete, and you were there to bring home a medal, hopefully, preferably the gold. But that's what I got out of it. These were two people who just skated in unison, and I don't know if you could comment to that. I mean, because I know the training's hard, but you get to a certain point where nobody can make you do it. You have to do it because it's in you. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think a lot of, there's, and as I'm coaching, I think in kids, the ones that have it and or the ones that are going to make it.
Oh, I'm sure you can. You can probably spot them as they're taking off their guards, right, to get on the ice.
That's actually pretty accurate. And a kid's or a teenager's mindset, and some are cut out for it and some just aren't. And it's okay.
Yeah.
There's a handful of athletes that make it to that goal. And then the rest do the best that they can as they're working their way through and navigating through that life.
God, when I skated, I used to feel like a bird. Did you ever feel like a bird? And if you just had wings, you could just take off on the ice? Because that's what you look like when you skate to me.
Yeah.
You're just effortless.
And Sheridan knows this too. The freedom, the speed, the wind against your face, all that stuff. There's a certain freedom to it that makes you feel really good. And
so
spinning and all that.
You went home that night. Oh my gosh. In the Olympics, and you watched the other skaters compete.
Yeah. So we were rushed out of the building, and
oh my God,
the press was trying to get to us, and so we went to the U.S. figure skating. They had a house there, for officials and athletes. So they took us there to get us sort of out of the way, and then, we were in shock. Pretty much. But the event was on live, so we watched all our friends and all our colleagues compete, and it was a little stressful. That was probably a very emotional time for an athlete to go through.
I can't imagine. And the way you captured that in the film, Sheridan, was beautiful. And again, I love the way you weave in the actual footage, the commentators, clips, newspaper clips, and then of course Randy's one-person show, which was so beautifully depicted. I hope you do that again, because I will go. All four of those, the way you edit it in and weave it in very seamlessly, really extends the story. It's just a beautiful, beautiful documentary. So Ty never really spoke about it with you. You guys didn't argue, nothing. It was just something that happened, an unfortunate situation that happened, right?
Yeah, and I didn't bring it up to her, and
wow.
She didn't bring it up to me because I didn't bring it up to her too much.
Yeah.
So it was, and in the film you learn a little bit more about me, that I had a really great capacity to shut things out.
Down. And do we know why? Because maybe there are lots of parts in your life that you had to shut out, right? You want to tell us about that?
There we go, Deborah. Yeah.
Well, because that's so important, right? It's a huge part of your story. You have so many layers to your story. You just keep peeling the onion. It's like, what? Yeah, keep going.
Well, and talking to therapists and some friends of mine that are psychologists. They said, Randy, that's what you needed. That's what athletes need. You have to put blinders on and go. You can't be distracted by stuff. So what is it that I have to do today to get through? And it was, what did I have to do that day after Lake Placid? We had our Ice Capades commitment coming up. And
right, because you decided to go pro.
Yeah.
You decided to go pro. So you were in the Ice Capades, which is also exciting. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but the scary part of all that was I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to skate again. So that was sort of in question. So I had physical therapy going on and all that. And again, I was focused on, we had signed our contract. I had to get better, and nothing else really was that important to me. To other people, maybe they would have thought of maybe doing other things, moving on, or sort of, getting a broader picture. And Sharidan knows, just from the work that we've done together, that that's kind of how I operate. Poor thing. She has to live through that.
No, you know what? He was very generous with me, just kind of taking the reins and doing it. And the way
with the film. And
the way I approach editing and the way I approach editing this film is that I wanted to weave it, because that's when you skate. It's, you never just stop, and you can do stops, but the best skating is the flow.
Yeah.
And Ty and Randy have that great artistry. And that was another thing that they had to combat is, their size. Most, pairs is like a teeny tiny girl. So not only did they have to be physically strong, that's when they changed the look, and they had it, so that was a focus too. And I mean,
right. And you also talked to his coach, their coach rather, in the film, which I love that you did that. I love these coaches. They're brilliant. And yes, you're right. It became more about the artistry and the dance of, which I think is what made you so brilliant. But it really goes to show when there's a small liability, which was Ty was getting bigger, taller, you got to think, now let's pivot and do something else. And what did you do? You made such a beautiful program out of your skating. And that wouldn't have happened maybe if she stayed a little tiny girl, right?
That's true. Yeah. John Nix had to create something that the other teams weren't doing. And that was the unison. And like Sharidan said, the flow. We had to create our own look and style. And the funny part of that is, because at that point we were at the top of our game, the other teams that were tall boy, short girl were trying to do that because we were doing it. And they were trying to beat us at our game.
Yeah.
And, that's what set us apart, because it was harder for those teams to do that.
Randy, how tall are you?
Now?
Oh yeah, I'll just whatever. Then now and then, we'll just chop an inch. We'll chop an inch for now.
Yeah, no, I'm 5'8".
No way. On the ice, you look 6'2". You're just this tall drip of water, as my mother would say. Like a drip of water. You look so tall and, of course, lean, but so strong. The way you would lift her. Oh my God, unbelievable. I mean, you were always, there you go. There's a shot of you. Well, there's a shot of you skating now, I think. But in some of the video, was that something you had to train for constantly? Just your strength to be able to hold her, lift her, throw her?
Yeah, we did off-ice training. I did weight training, and I did a lot of off-ice with her too,
Yeah.
A lot of different exercises, walking a lift straight, turning her both ways when she's in the air, a lot of that.
A lot of trust. Good thing I wasn't your partner. I would have been screaming. I'd be like, no, Randy, I'm going to hit the floor. You would have thrown me out to pasture in a minute. So there's a lot of trust there too.
Yeah, she had to trust me, and she did. There were some intense falls and accidents too. That's sort of part of it.
Let's talk about the way Sharidan, I love the way you put this in the film very casually, about your crush. You were looking up to someone that I also had a crush on, by the way, Greg Louganis, right? The diver. Oh, another beautiful athlete. Just watching him. And remember that time when he hit his head on the board? Oh my gosh, that was so difficult. But talk to me a little bit about that and about your own sexuality when you came out, because it's a very, very important part of the story, not just for you, but for other people after you.
Yeah. Well, I was a gay baby. I'm 100% sure of it. I don't know what else you can say about
Wait, oh my God, growing up in a conservative home, and you talk about how they tried to sort of educate you out of it, right? Oh my God.
Yeah. And but I knew I was different, felt different, and I was different. And so I lived with that. And again, I was great at shutting things out. So what was most important was the skating. And the skating could take care of a lot of things. And it did.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it gave you confidence in an area that maybe you would have never had if you hadn't skated, because you would have felt like, oh man, why can't I play football and be like the guys, you know? But instead you had your own thing to focus on. And you're right, take your mind away from other stuff. But tell me a little more about that, about having to hide, and who knew?
Right. So, well, no one knew at first. When I was a teenager, I was in the closet. It was just fine. You know, I had girlfriends sort of. And
I'm convinced when I look at video and stuff, I think Ty had a little crush on you, the way she would look at you. Did she ever talk about that or no?
I don't know if so much of that is in the film. I think she did. I think she loved me, you know.
Yeah, she loved you. She really loved you.
Probably,
you
know, boyfriend, girlfriend. I don't know if that was in the cards just because of, you know, a lot of pair teams of boyfriend, girlfriends, or even husband and wives, you know, but our situation wasn't going to be that way.
Yeah. No way. No,
yeah,
it wasn't.
As my sexuality, it was not, we weren't on that path.
Yeah.
And so when I became a teenager, when I was, quote, out to myself and a few friends, that was about it. That was the extent of it. My family I hadn't discussed it with my family. But I had friends that knew. And then it was a time in the 70s, coming out was not that great of an idea.
No. There was money on the line. There was all kinds of things on the line. Religious values, right? We all know about the conversion therapy. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, no. So I had to stay in the closet, and it was more comfortable for me to be in there than out.
Very nice.
It was actually life-saving, to tell the truth. And so it was career-saving for sure. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, we turned pro in 1980, did all that. I had my first official boyfriend, and then I was actually okay with being myself. Then kind of jump ahead several years. There was a People magazine article, and I came out in People magazine.
It's a beautiful article too. And it really, you know that you're somebody that people look up to. And there's a lot of young men and women. It's different now, but it's really not a lot different. I think there's some areas where people can come out, and there's some parts of the world and country where they kind of can't. But when they look to somebody like you and say, okay, he managed to get through it, I'm going to read his story and I'm going to get through it too. That is everything to kids. That's life-saving. And the way you depicted that, Sharidan, was beautiful. The way you depicted that in the film was wonderful. The way it came out and came up.
Yeah, and you know, they were honored at Ice Theater New York, and they had the two male pair skaters, that male pair skaters in the LGBTQ section, you know, were from the Ice Theater New York tribute. They had the skating right before, and when I saw them, I was like, I'm going to purposely frame it that they're in the corner representing, because it's like the one thing that, you know, was easier for Randy to hide it is because he had Ty. And and like the incredible, like the bridal magazines that were like, they're the California couple, and
oh my God,
magazine with the fake date and all that kind of,
that was crazy, right? Yeah. That was wow. Yeah, just like old time Hollywood, as you spoke about in the film, guys.
And so it made it harder, you know, I mean, easier to hide. And, you know, when I was a kid, it was like, oh, they're a couple, you know, it's like, you know, you just see a boy and a girl together and you naturally.
That's what I thought. I mean, that's what I thought too. I mean, they did a lovely job making you two look like, you know, a real couple like that. But that was a very pivotal time. I keep using that word, you know, it's sort of like a double entendre there, but it's true. When that came out, how did that make you feel? Did you finally feel like, oh, you know, wow, I could be myself, or was it almost exhausting to have to come out?
No, it wasn't exhausting because I'm a true believer that a person should come out when they're ready.
When they're ready, yeah.
They're ready. Some are ready early, some are ready later, some aren't ready at all. And I think it's all okay.
Yeah.
So when I did it, I was comfortable. Another skater just came out not so long ago, the French Guillaume, the French ice dance champion. Very, very Cicerone. And I didn't know he was gay just until he came out. And in his article, it was a European article, he said, my friends knew, my family knew, but he said, I didn't think, he goes, straights don't have to come out. And I had to chuckle at that. Because little funny.
It's kind of funny you said that, because I, as a straight person, think about that all the time, because I know I have many, many gay people in my family, my friends. And I think I do not need to walk into a room and go, hello, how are you? I'm straight. So I often wonder, why do people even, why do we need to know? Like gay, whatever people are, should just be accepted, right? I mean, look at the kind of world we're living in today. I mean, we've got to move this forward where we don't have to walk in a room, have a magazine article to say, guess what, folks? So I hope that you helped move that forward, Randy. I really do.
Well, I think it probably had a little bit of that, but his opening line in the article was the same thing I thought. I don't know if I said it, but I thought, okay, here I go. What do I have to lose? And when I did it in officially in the press, I thought, what do I got to lose?
I mean, you've been through so much, okay? You could have won the Olympics and you fell down because of an injury, right? And then you were so resilient and decided to turn pro. Thank God you were able to. You were a gay man, a gay boy who was just hiding his whole life, and you came out, and that was okay. And there's a third part. There are many parts of the story. And by the way, you're married, so very successfully married, right? So congratulations. How many years have you been married?
12.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Well, married 11. We've been together 21 years.
Wow. So, okay. He's seen everything. That's beautiful. But there's a third part to your story. There's something that never quite felt right? You'd look at yourself and look at your family and go, why do I not look like them? And then you found out, oh my God. And how you found out, I still can't believe it, but go ahead.
Well, I found out I was adopted at age 40, and that was another thing I sort of was, you think, oh, well, not everybody looks alike in families. Not everybody acts alike. And I thought that was my situation. But in the back of my head, I kept thinking, I really don't belong in this family. There was
I say that every day, Randy, if it makes you feel any better. I'm telling you the truth. Yeah. And by the way, my parents are like, they come up to my waist, and I'm a pretty tall girl. I'm like 5'9", and I often look and I go, this can't be, but I look like my dad. But go ahead. You're not alone.
Yeah. So I thought that was just my situation. So, but then I decided I was going to find out, and I hired a search agency to find if there was, then they could find out if we were adopted. They just, long story short, they found my records in the state of California, my adoption records. So I had to petition the state to get my papers. I was over 18, so I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And sent me my papers. And on there, it has the interview that Dottie, my birth mom, gave when she gave me up. And it gave her name and the reason. She was young and she said she really couldn't care for me. And she put me up for a private adoption. So that confirmed to me that I was adopted.
Wow.
And the next phase was, do you want to meet her? Or do you want to search, A, and then B, once they found her, do you want to meet her? And I said yes. So they found her, and they said she's up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And they gave me a couple of options how to contact her. And the one I chose was to write a letter, a very vague letter.
Vague. You didn't say, I'm Randy Gardner. You just had a vague letter, right? Go ahead. Oh, I love this story.
Well, not only that, you don't know who you're writing. You don't know who's going to open the mail. You don't know who knows about you or anything. So you write a very vague letter. And I just said, I believe we're related. And are we on?
Yeah, we're on.
Oh, I'm sorry. My
He
sound.
was waiting for the little laughter on the joke. No.
Okay, ba-dum-bum. Yeah.
No, you know what? I'm so riveted from this story. Like I get anxiety when I hear it. It's so crazy. It's almost like I'm living it with you. It's weird. That's what a good job you did, Sharidan. I'm telling you the truth. With this film, I feel like I'm living it with you guys. Go ahead, but haha, very funny. Go ahead. There's my laugh.
Yeah. So I wrote her a very vague letter, and with like 3 days, she wrote me back.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was so excited. She'd been waiting for me to find her. Hopefully, I would, because it was a private adoption, and she was instructed to don't try to contact me or find out or anything. And she never knew what happened to me. So I found her, and then she gave me the details on how I was conceived, and I was conceived because she was raped by her boss. She was 17. He was in his 60s. And he was
and he was a bread maker, wasn't he? Like she worked for him in a bakery.
Yeah, this is the Long Beach. This is the Long Beach part.
That's the Long Beach part, yeah.
Yeah, she was living in Long Beach. She was a baker in Long Beach. He hired her as a young girl. She was 17. But she got the job because her Sunday school teacher, Palermo, wife.
Right.
So the wife brought her in to work. He was raping her, and it took. And she got pregnant with me. And that's how I had to find out that little bit of information during.
And then you found out where she was. You agreed to meet, right? You didn't meet at a hotel?
Yeah. So it took about I would say maybe 6 months before I really got the nerve to decide to do that. And we met in San Jose, California. So she drove from Idaho, and I drove up from LA, and that's where we met. And
the greatest part, though, is when you knocked on the door, and she's a little person, little teeny lady, right? You open the door, and you're like, "Where is she?" Yeah. Right? And then she looks up, and she says, "You're."
She says, "Oh my God, you are Randy Gardner, the ice skater."
I'm surprised she didn't fall back and faint. I don't know how she didn't do that. I practically did it just watching the film. Again, kudos to you, Sharidan, because this is the impact it had on me. And you know it did, because after I watched it, remember, I was texting the three of you saying, "Oh my God, I love this film. You know, whatever I can do," because it's such a powerful story of resilience, of everything, of coming out, of being adopted, of deceit, because then you were thinking about your adoptive parents. My God, why didn't you tell me? Right? That was a whole nother thing.
Yeah. And Sharidan, I want Sharidan to join here. She has the great little words, the bullet points of what the film is: resilience, bravery, whatever those are.
Yeah, it's like
that's what this film is. Look at me.
She has those little bullet points, and I think they're so important. Sharidan, you can sort of go through that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, he's under the glare of a microscope, and you know, they've been doing this since they were kids. Like, they didn't know anything else, just like he didn't know that he was adopted his whole life.
Right.
So when you build yourself up with one notion of your life, and then all of a sudden, no Olympics, you know, freak thing. You know, had it happen, you know, 2 weeks earlier, the Olympics, he'd be fine. I mean, I think about those athletes with the boycott, with the COVID Olympics, the postponement. They're probably at their peak for this year. You know,
yeah.
So the kids are going to, you know, especially now with skating. The one thing too, with skating back then versus skating now is, and with stuff like, you know, finding your adoptive parents, you know, you can't go to the internet.
Right.
You know, it's a physical thing. You know, with the scrapbook, you had to actually cut it and paste it. You know, there's something about that tactile thing. So, you know, the figure skaters needed to actually do figures. And that's why they look so graceful, because they built those muscles and those edges. And that's that kind of sweet spot. You know, a lot of people didn't like to watch it on TV because it wasn't glamorous and all that kind of stuff. But
it was to me. Yeah.
It's the fundamentals. And I
Yeah.
think that I think the pandemic and everybody being in quarantine, we've gotten back to the fundamentals. Everybody started baking their own bread. They started,
Well, we did. We baked our own bread.
Exactly.
2 days later, it went moldy, but it tasted good that day. I will tell. I'm telling you, we did. We ended up in that whole bread baking thing. Yeah, I'm not the greatest baker. I got to be honest, but we did it.
Yeah, we all became like pioneer people. Like let's churn our own butter or whatever. But
get the horses out and just ride on down to the market.
But it just it magnifies how harder it was. Technology does good things. I mean, we wouldn't be able to do this show without it. We'd all be on the phone and radio or whatever. But it's pretty powerful that we can all be in separate places talking about the same thing, and knock on wood, the technical is good and all that kind of stuff.
Well, this is a very timely film because the Olympics, now we know the Summer Olympics will take place, God willing, next year in 2021. Thank God. But you're right. It's very tough for these athletes. They train for this moment, this second. Now they've got to pivot, right? And then the Winter Olympics of 2022, which why I think this is a very, very timely film. I know that you were not able to go to any of the film festivals, so that's tough because this is the kind of film that you're looking for the distribution. But it's without a doubt, once someone sees this and once this is presented at the film festivals, I think you're going to have them banging on the door. You'll be able to figure where it is. I love this film. Yeah, I think
we're going to have a good. I think it definitely has a really good future, and
yes,
we're
it
out
does.
there, and I think we are actually in pitching mode. I'm not going to say much more, Sharidan. Don't get excited, but we're doing what we talked earlier. The traditional path for an independent film like this is film festivals, and you go out for distribution, and that's what we're doing. So we're on our way.
Well,
it's very exciting, and they're gonna have them again. Might not be this month, might not be in August or even in the fall, but it's going to happen, and in a weird way, because you've had timing on your side your whole life, Randy. I'm telling you, you've got a little angel on both shoulders, and because the Olympics now were rescheduled, perhaps this is a very, very timely time for your film, right? You've got the summer and the winter. So, yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What were you going to say, Sharidan?
Oh, I'm just, the one awesome thing, about this film and about the journey of this film, it's supposed to be a sizzle reel, like, hey,
that's right.
The play. It kind of grew and grew and grew. And, why I think you feel that it's woven organically is because the material just like spoke at certain points. I'm a film editor by trade. So when I work on an episodic show, like I did The Shy, while we did crowdfunding, which was no joke, and being a really independent film, like super independent, like on my laptop and that kind of thing, that's a whole other aspect. And like for me, I have to always go, okay, it makes sense to me. Is it
right
for other people? That's the biggest difficulty because it's a collaborative medium. So that was the thing that I always have to, and that's my training as an editor. Because you have to look at it as the audience, and is it clear, and is it resonating, and all that kind of stuff. And so, the film festivals, my one thing, everybody got derailed with COVID, and some people got devastated with COVID. And some people, and it's all, somebody said that it was like, we're all in the same ocean, but different boats. We all have our own thing. So, for me, doing this, we were kind of doing it for like about 3 years off and on. Depending on the schedules and everything like that. I was so looking forward to just seeing it in the theater with people and not have to be the one girl band and do the technical and just kind of float in. Like Randy and I would always joke, we're going to get our hair did, put our tiaras on and go do the Q&A and all that kind of stuff. Because that's where, you can never replace that kind of audience feel. Luckily, we did some private kind of test screenings with family, friends, and stuff like that, and it was so touching to see them touched by it. And as a filmmaker, no matter where it goes, I told the story I want to tell, and people are affected by it. So you can't control who's going to buy it, or you can't control the Olympics going away. You can't control COVID. You can't control the times. You can only control your creativity. And I think it's how you respond, like Randy, that resilience. And, we use pivot. Pivot is actually a skating, move. There's so many moves in figure skating where, figure skating, and Randy describes it great in the film with the physics, you're on a tiny little blade. So it's all about like that preciseness and that nature. And when you do something over and over again, editing's over and over again, skating's over and over again to get good, it really kind of makes you nonverbal. It's like it builds something within you. And
Beautiful.
I think, a lot of people could use that, just anything. Like, I started a meditation program where you just draw on a piece of paper for 10 minutes. And it just, when you're at the rink, part of it is that feel of the ice and that freedom. But, the rinks have been closed now. And if you're injured or you can't afford it or whatever, you can't always get to a rink.
Right.
You can recreate that kind of feeling of freedom in your head, and you have to in these times because you're in a little tiny box right now.
Well, clearly you did that in the film. And before I let you both go, Randy, I want to talk to you a little bit about this weekend, right? Because I know you're very involved with gay rights, and they're supposed to be having the Pride Parade this week. And there's here in Los Angeles and West Hollywood, and they're having it, they're not having it, they're having it. But there's also a solidarity march, which I love, this Sunday at Hollywood and Highland. For those who are in LA, there's been lots of marches, lots of very peaceful protests, and you may be, joining them, right? Because we need rights for everybody, and right now we're talking rights for Black people, Black Lives Matter, and gay rights matter, and you may be marching with them. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
Sheridan's going to be involved. She has this great little thing, contribution to this. I am not comfortable marching yet in groups or being in groups outside yet.
Yeah, I'm actually not either, by the way. I don't know. This whole COVID thing has still got me freaked out.
I'm not quite ready for that. I
Yeah.
support them, and I'll do anything virtual or online or anything like
Yeah.
that. Well, I'm just not crazy about being in crowds right now until we know more about this. But Sheridan, tell them about what you contribute.
So when I went to film school, I was in the Trojan marching band. And
Right.
When I saw the aerials of these crowds, they're wearing masks, but they're not practicing that 6 feet. And a lot of people don't know what 6 feet is spatially. They just don't. A lot of people can't tell,
Isn't it like the Leonardo da Vinci thing where you just put your arms out?
And stuff like that, but people don't get that, especially because people are used to. Oh, there you go.
There you go. You keep interviewing too long, you eventually are going to fall right out. But go ahead, very briefly.
No, I mean, people can't tell spatially. But what marching bands do is they make an impact because they're spaced apart.
Right.
But they march together.
Right.
And they play different instruments. So basically, I had a public poetry project that was with the Music Center for years. And it was with events, outdoor events, where I would have people write 5 words on a ribbon. So I had all these extra ribbons, and I go tie them together. You hold one end, I hold the other.
That's smart.
We can step together. So
I hope you have a lot of ribbons for this weekend. There's going to be a lot of people out there. I mean, you got to be putting those together all week. I'm telling you. But before I let you both go, any parting words that you'd like to say, Randy, before we let you go? I'm just honored to talk to you. And I know that you still give skating lessons. Maybe one day you'll spend an hour with me and get me back up on skates, because I was a skater. I was very good, but there's a reason why I stopped. It's a whole different story some other day. But that's what you do now, right? That's your joy. You're an instructor. You're a teacher.
Yeah. And I think parting words, we're in such a weird place right now, but I do think we are going to get through it.
Yeah.
This is probably the most impactful thing we've had to live through in modern day history. But I know that people, the U.S., LA in particular, where we are, we're resilient. And we're going to find different ways of doing things. Life will not be the same, it'll be different. Just like we got through the little mini recession in 2007 and 2008, things reshape. and we are going to reshape and keep moving forward. And we're doing it together.
Yeah. And if you have issues, I always like to say to people, vote. Don't forget to vote. That's very important, guys. And we both know that, right? I could just tell from your reactions, like, please vote.
Just one sentence there. It's a numbers game, people. No matter what you think, it's a numbers game in the end. You vote. Well, the one with the most votes, electoral votes, gets in. Period. Out. End of story.
Yeah.
Boom.
Well. Anyway, this has been such an honor and such a pleasure to speak with you both. A gifted filmmaker and someone that I truly admire since I was a little kid, Randy Gardner, and of course your partner Ty Babylonia. Just beautiful skaters. One of the most resilient people I've ever spoke with, Randy. So I really thank you for giving me the time to talk to you. And this film is outstanding. Go figure, the Randy Gardner Story. Remember that name, because you're going to be finding this out there somewhere once it gets picked up and distributed, because it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So thank you for making this film, and thank you for talking to me about it. I appreciate it. And everybody, please look for that on all the social media. You know, anything you want to know, I'm sure they'll both answer you on social media as well. I know I do. I always answer everybody.
It's gofiguredocumentary.com is our
gofiguredocumentary.com. Yeah. Thank you again, both of you. You took a lot of time here. And thank you, everybody out there, for joining us for Deborah Kobylt Live. You can find us on Facebook and on YouTube. We cut up little promos and put them on our Instagram. And then in terms of our podcasts, you can find them everywhere. iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker. And honestly, if you just put our name in, you'll find our podcast anywhere. So I appreciate all of you for helping us grow to the way we have for our podcasts. I appreciate it very much. And thanks again for joining us. Be safe out there, everybody. And